All right, and this is the next module, and this is going to be going over influence tactics or influence tools. And before I get into this, I want to preface this material comes from Dr. Robert Cialdini. He wrote a book called Influence. I highly recommend that you get this. I think this book needs to be and we're going to have this in the personal development section as well, but this needs to be in your weekly, your daily reads to understand the psychology of influence and how you can use those things appropriately whenever you're working with sellers. And I think it's very, very important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the different influence tools one by one, then also give you one example for each one that you can use. And obviously, as you understand these principles and these tactics, you can create your own, scenarios to use these accordingly to the situation that the seller may be in, so you can help move the deal forward. So let's get right into this. Now, first, let's clear something up. So influence is positive, right? Number one, we can't control a seller. You can't make a seller do anything. You can't make a seller or anyone sign the dotted line if they don't want to. The only thing that we can do is influence. We can influence by being really good at what we're doing, being a professional, being an authority in our craft, mastering our craft, understanding and being a market expert. These are ways that we can influence, and obviously these other different principles that we can apply as well. So influence is a positive thing. It's the only thing that we can do with people is we can influence, right? We can influence in a good way and a positive way. So let's jump right into this and we'll go over each influence tactic. Now the first one's going to be reciprocity, okay? Now, this is something to where you can use this with the seller, and I'm going to give you a quick example. Offer a free market analysis. Whenever you offer a seller a free market analysis, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm going to give you something, up front. I'm not expecting anything in return. The simple gesture can go a long ways. They can look at as, unconsciously, this is someone that I want to do business with. This is someone I want to communicate with. Like, they're offering their time, their energy. They're offering free information that can be useful for me as a homeowner. That's something that they may want to reciprocate back to you. And that's the whole point, right? Is when you give, you're most likely going to get. So guys, what we want to do is we want to be able to influence the seller in a positive way and move them down the path and get them to the closing table. So these are tools to help open up those doors so they trust us and they want to work with us, right? So yeah, if you offer a free market analysis, it may not directly lead to a closed transaction, but what it's going to do is it's going to open up the door for them to receive information, and they're going to allow you to influence them so they can get, move down their process of selling their house, okay? Now, the second one's going to be commitment and consistency. Commitment and consistency. And I want you to go ahead and dive into this material in the book called Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. So I'm not going to go deep on each one. We will have a lot of information on the module here. But one way you can use this influence tool with a seller is get the sellers to agree on a scheduled phone call. So for example, lead comes into the system, you send them a text message. Hey, Mr. Seller, this is Blake with Freedom Hawk Equity. I got your lead that you sent, or I got your information that you sent in about your property on 123 ABC Street. Hey, does 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock work better for you for a quick phone call? They text me back, 2 o'clock works good, great. So I have a form of a commitment from the seller. Now, what this principle basically says is as we get little micro commitments from the seller, that they're going to be more likely to open up the door and commit to actually selling the property to us, right? So it's building up that muscle, getting them to say yes, getting them to commit throughout the process, so that way you can get them to commit to actually coming to terms with selling their property and moving forward. So that's the second influence tool. Now the third one is going to be social proof. Social proof. Now, you're doing inside sales, right? Like we're an inside sales organization. We're doing everything over the phone. So, social proof can be really, really powerful here. I think oftentimes we don't use this enough, but I think it can be a really, really powerful tool that you can use whenever you're working with a homeowner and a seller. And here's one thing that you could do is you can share a success story that mirrors their situation. I think this is one of the greatest things that you can do. So if you have a seller that's going through a particular situation, a particular scenario, you can reference back, even if you have to kind of, mold the story a little bit, you can reference back a closed transaction or a past example that you were working with the seller where it was a successful outcome, and it literally, pretty much fits kind of the situation that they're in. Now for them, they're going to enjoy that because they now see themselves in that person's shoes, and they're like, you know what, if it worked for them, it will probably work for me. And most of the time with our sellers, they want that reassurance. They want that knowingness that, hey, this is going to work out for me. Like there is a possibility. There's still hope here. I can still make this happen. So it's really critical that you use social proof and you use it often, because people need to hear past stories that mirror where they're at now, so they can put two and two together and say, you know what, I'm not the only one out there going through this. Okay. Number 4 is authority. Authority. Now, this is basically just demonstrating your expertise, right? Now, this is important because it's going to allow the seller to trust your information more, because they feel like you're an expert, like you know what you're talking about, like you're not just some fly-by-the-night person. What you say holds a lot of weight, and it's very important that you demonstrate that you are an expert in your industry and you're a marketplace expert. It's very, very important. Now, what you could do is in this situation is you want to highlight maybe some of your past experiences, mention how you've been doing this for many years. Obviously, you close X amount of deals per week. You help X amount of sellers per week, that you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen their situation before. Sellers like to hear this. If they're going through something and if you say, you know what, Mr. Seller, I had, this is very common. I typically see this 3 or 4 times a week, every single week, and I've been doing this for 8 years. So you can run up the numbers, Mr. Seller. I've seen this thousands of times. This is easy. I have your back. I can get this done for you. This is not going to be any sweat off my back. Easy situation, but I do understand what you're going through, and I know it may be stressful right now, but I've seen this so many times. I'm going to make this easy for you. What that does is it raises your altitude in the marketplace. In their eyes, it takes you from someone that they feel uneasy with to someone now that they can trust as a marketplace authority, and they're going to want to listen to you now. Number 5 is liking. Liking. This is being genuine. Like, be genuine in your communication. Like, have a genuine interest in their needs and who they are as a person. Guys, it goes a long ways just to actually care about what someone is saying and to actually be genuine about it. Like, when you're talking with a seller, they may be going through some stress, they may be going through some problems, but if you can find just one thing, 2 things to connect with them genuinely on, it could be location, it could be one of their hobbies, their interests, it could be the car that they drive, it doesn't matter what it is. Be genuine. People they want that connection. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. People just want to be connected with. They want to understand that, hey, this person understands me, and they're going to want to listen to you more. If they feel like that you're being genuine and they like you, they will listen to you much, much more. So be genuine. Be genuine. Just find something to connect with them. Don't make it awkward. Don't make it unauthentic. Don't make it fake. Actually find something legitimate that you really are like, hey, that's a really cool thing, or like, hey, I understand what you're going through. Just be genuine. Every human being can pick this up. They know if you're being genuine or not. And the last but not least is scarcity. So this is an important tool to use, right? So I think scarcity, what scarcity does is it creates a container, it creates a sense of urgency for the seller to make a decision, right? Now, you don't have to use this and be, go overboard, right? You can just simply say like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, our company has X amount of funds available for buying properties in the area, and we're only here for the next, 3 weeks. Your property qualifies. I'm running out of funds. We've already bought 21 properties in the past 3 weeks. I only have, enough money for 2 more properties. I would like to do yours and not the other, 11 that we're looking at. that creates scarcity. Now, why is that important? It's important because it forces decision making. So it allows the seller to actually make a better decision. Oftentimes, if there's not scarcity and there's not urgency, the seller may procrastinate. They may not want to come to terms with making a decision. So use this influence tool, scarcity, because what it's going to do is going to actually help the seller make a decision.